Hello, YouTube friends. On Halloween and Fukushima, and what I call is a romance with the Grim Reaper, and I think Halloween is probably a great representation. Historically, right to the present, we just can't give up this fascination we have with death and destruction and things being not quite right, to have like goblins and creatures infiltrate and populate our psyches. We have to reinforce something within ourselves that reminds us that we truly want to have a romance with the Grim Reaper, Halloween, and Fukushima. I've just returned from my show in Toronto, the opening. I had quite a good time. I met a lot of people, some I hadn't seen for a long time. And I thought I'd just post this, probably because I'm not really focused on Halloween, but I know that there is a psychic relevance to us. And my shout out always when I do my videos isn't to the fact and truth junkies. And I don't want to disparage people who give us the facts, ma'am, but I see very little contextual YouTubes being produced, in the sense that people have the courage to express their own inner self, rather than reflecting on the external world, to express their own inner sense, their self, their feeling of self, how they manifest in the real world, that inner world. And I had one piece, and if you go to my video that shows the hanging of the show, I haven't put up all the footage, the video footage of the opening itself, but there is the hanging, and in the corner, the hanging of the work, and in the corner is a piece of a rather barbaric, brutal looking sculpture, which I called Inner Reality, the Final Frontier. No, rather, Inner Space, the Final Frontier, based on Captain Kirk's assertion that space is the final frontier. Well, I would say that inner space is the final frontier, and all the manifestations of what we perceive to be reality and our attachment to what we understand to be, would like to be truth, is, as I have always said, it's very difficult to determine the reality we live in. And it may seem to most people, or many people, that this is absurd, because we have things that look the way they look. This is a lighter, and it lights something, the fire comes out of it, it's real, it's there. But without getting too esoteric, I have grave doubts about what our perception is really telling us most of the time, which is why art is a fabulous format, platform, tool to place some questions in our psyches about how we conduct our day-to-day lives, how we would like to understand the world that we live in, because it's not what it appears to be. Yes, it's not what it appears to be. And I could give examples of this because, well, I surprise myself with my own work, because I am on a certain path and I produce something. And the work that you see behind me, again, these are the sculpt paintings. They're part of the free radical art that I'm involved in. And I had no clue about making this work maybe a year ago, and it appears, and it's surprising. And you know, every now and then there is a level of originality that is even thrilling. But more important for me, and when I do these posts, and everyone that comes back to listen to me, I suppose, is appreciative of the sense of context that they may get from my reflections and thoughts about what it is, the reality we live in. And I don't spend a lot of time on the physical reality, other than, of course, Fukushima, which I am convinced is one of the most epic, if not the most epic, ecological event that has occurred in the history of humanness, lifeness on this planet, short of some monumental object hitting the earth as supposedly has happened in the past? I don't know. I'm not sure. Scientists, the white coats, come up with explanations about what this reality is 1 billion or even 4.5 billion years ago. How the hell would they know? They don't even remember their shopping list from a couple of weeks ago, and they're telling us 4 billion years. And what is time? What is space? What is outer space is a mystery, as large of a mystery as the inner space, which is what I'm focused on, in order to create a context for the external world. Because we will never, ever come to what we want to have as a truth if we haven't done that inner work. That's what I say in a context, which is why we end up with a rotten culture, rotten civilization, rotten to the core, because the inner work generally is not done. It doesn't mean for me that people are bad people or evil people. It just means we are succumbing to a narrative, to a story that's not our own. I've said this many times. We end up with Fukushima because we don't actually listen to our inner self and create our own story. And it doesn't mean that our story is going to put us on the barricades or have any kind of specific result or manifestation about stuff we do. I've said, people, pick your fight. There are many different levels of picking a fight once we've understood something about ourselves that's wholesome, that's balanced on every level. On every level. It means denying, first of all, the first step I suggest is deny any or question any official story. Whatever it comes that comes through the consensual network of our culture, of our civilization, just put it aside and say, I will look at this on my own terms. That's all I'm saying. Express it in actions, in thoughts, every day. Every day is a challenge in this regard. I find this every day being a challenge in my own life to express my story and understand what it is that I'm surrounded in, because I need to have a context in terms of the experiences that I have. This is my channel. For people coming and listening to me the first time, and I'm noticing that I don't know how real we can actually attach our understanding to view counts and likes and dislikes. We know that things are manipulated. I'm not going to even say that my channel is manipulated, because I'm not an impactful person or someone of spectacle in the way that is being expected now, to ratchet up the level of spectacle, whether it's through entertainment or vulgarities or whatever it is that people think they attract interest to themselves. I am committed to this idea of resolving within myself and expressing on this platform that it is the inner work that we need to do before anything changes out there. This is something that I've said over and over again, and I will repeat this because I find this to be so important. So to come to a comment on specifically on this idea of romancing the Grim Reaper. It is another slogan that the culture of death and the age of fission and romancing the Grim Reaper, they all overlap with each other. And I suppose what it is that I would like to, I guess I'll finish here. I will maintain my presence on YouTube. Oh yes, the idea of not being a person of spectacle, although I do feel that some of my work that I have conjured is quite spectacle is oriented in the sense that it is unusual on many different levels that I've understood, not necessarily on the story that I'm telling in terms of the image, like a story, but in the way it's presented to you. That the majority of information is always transmitted not via the brain that you analyze the words and the sentences, but the impact comes from a sensibility we have that is beyond thought and I suppose brain. I don't know if brain is really important at all in the way I feel I'm transmitting my images, or what my images transmit are primarily on a sensory level that is not really that well understood. I mean, we can see colors, we have smells, we use those senses, but there is another sense that I'm not really quite capable of articulating that I feel is impacted when we are able to make something or produce something of value that is that transmits itself on a very fundamental level. This is, and I can't explain this, but I like a good story. I like a good story, and I just remembered for my opening, what I did is I wore a noose with my suit. You'll see I will, I wore the noose. And I have to say, I was shocked that I didn't get one single comment on wearing the noose. I wore a jacket that was quite fancy. I stood out a little bit. Hey, that must be the artist. But nobody recognized the fact that instead of wearing a tie, I was wearing the noose. Oh, it's just very commonplace, I suppose. People see the noose every day. Of course they do. The tie, the suit and the tie is the noose. And I was just drawing attention to the fact that, maybe one person asked me after I said, "How do you like my noose?" And yeah, oh yeah, I noticed that. Oh, what was it? And I said, well, it's my version of having a suit and a tie, wearing the noose. So there is a level of spectacle. I mean, as an artist, as a painter, I see myself as an entertainer. Entertainment in the sense that I challenge the senses, challenge ideas that present some kind of possibly anomaly or an inspiration. I love the idea of inspiration, that people are inspired. Be inspired. So my sense of my own reality starts with an inner feeling, question, thought, resolution, physically, mentally, that we need to be healthy. We need to have a strong immune system that doesn't receive toxic vaccinations. The incredible amount of toxicities injected into young bodies, innocent babies, when they're 2-3 weeks old, they have enormous amounts of toxic elements populating, creating autisms, creating weird effects, Asperger's, you name it. The range of immune deficiencies escalates the higher these toxins, and we need to remove these toxins from our body in order, and this is my final point, in order for us to have a sense of the reality we live in, we need to be detoxified on every level, mentally and physically. I suppose esoterically, spiritually as well, whatever that might mean to you. I'm not going to get into that, because that's the side of the art thing that I deal with. The spiritual side of the art is a magnificent entry. I mean, this opens up enormous possibilities. Once we get into this physical, mental sorted out, then the spiritual world, whatever that mystery that surrounds us is identified, and possibly becomes more tolerable. We are more able to tolerate, to bear the frustration of not knowing. This is the mystery. That's my take on it. So we are not going to make much of a headway, as I've said, on any of the major issues that the external world has presented us, because it exists out there, because we individually have not committed to that inner revolution, that inner change within us. And what is the greatest thing that each human being is capable of, what I have said, is that we, every day, are aware of doing the right thing. On whatever level that is, whatever that means to each person, we come to an understanding of this quality that we all have to act our conscience and become better people because of it. And this is ultimately what will filter into what we understand to be the external world, and all the I suppose it's a little negative to call them truth junkies and fact junkies, but that's all it is for me. I listen to people, David Icke, presenters that, okay, like the Young Turks and all the news channels and the W 77.7 and people I even like the Quantum of Conscience fellow Matt, who talks about all the things that he sees around him. He's not able to digest the inner world. He has not resolved this inner world because everything that he's telling me, yes, it's true, but there is no context. You lose the context. All you're getting is bombarded. Like I suppose I'm bombarding you. This external character comes on YouTube and bombards you. This is something that is irrelevant until we actually understand what that means, what comes out of us to create the world around us. This is something we need to understand, which is why, again, I do the art, because it comes out from me. I can distinguish something that is truly me rather than someone else that I'm regurgitating. And when I do regurgitate stuff in my art, I recognize it, or I learn to recognize it, or a critic or a colleague, a fellow artist says, hey, I've seen a similar feeling, or I've seen this, you're doing this that you've seen before. It's Cézanne, it's Monet, it's Giotto, it's Michelangelo, it's Damien Hirst. I don't care. The thing is, you have to put it out there in order to be able to understand what is going on inside, unless you're a Swami and you can sit on a stone and meditate. And you know, what did Siddhartha say? I can fast, I can think, and I can meditate. I think that's what he said. And I would add another one. I said, I have the ability to bear frustration. This is a phenomenal aspect to our nature. Halloween, Fukushima, and the romance that we have with the Grim Reaper during the Age of Fission.